Hi, this is Josh Bonker, and welcome to the WTS podcast, where we help business owners move from owning a job to owning a business, mastering their systems so they can simplify growth. And today, I got a special guest. I've got Troy with WP Elevation. Really excited. Can you hear me, Troy?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Okay, very good. I'm really excited because Troy and his company, WP Elevation, made dramatic steps forward with the work system method. And today I get to interview him and hear about his transformation. And I'm sure you all are going to learn a lot. So, Troy, let's start from the beginning. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your business, where you're located, and what you do.
Yeah, so we're located out of Melbourne in Australia. We have my business partners in Sydney. We have remote staff in the Philippines, in the US, and in 3 different states here in Australia. And we started out as web developers, specifically WordPress developers, and we grew over a period of years into a coaching business. So now we're a business coaching program, and we coach other WordPress developers and consulting agencies through the process of growing their business and hiring staff and attracting leads and developing products, managing cash flows, systemizing, all that kind of good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been going, this incarnation of the business has been around for about 5.5 years. And yeah, things are going really well. In fact, if you told me 5.5 years ago that this business would be what it is now, I would have laughed and would never have believed you. It literally started with a webinar, this business, and the interest was so great that we were off to the races from day one.
So let's walk through the story, because most people hearing this are thinking, "Wow, how did Troy get this far?" And it wasn't by accident. You guys put in a lot of hard work, built some systems. So what was it like? Let's just say, pre putting systems in place, and then walk through how you did that, how you actually put those building blocks in place.
Yeah, so when I first started out in business, I was given the good fortune, some might say, of someone gave me a book called E-Myth Revisited by Michael E. Gerber, which I read, and I understood it. The penny dropped and the light bulb went off, to coin 2 cliches in one sentence. Right from the start, I was like, right, I need to systemize and write processes for everything we're doing. And so when this business started, the first staff member we had here in Australia was a girl named Jin, who still works with us. And she basically shadowed me for a couple of weeks and kind of documented what I did in terms of, and we're a membership website back then. So we were sending weekly newsletters to our members to keep them up to date. We were running webinars, running coaching calls, uploading those recordings into the members website, all that stuff. And she ghosted me for a couple of weeks and then basically documented how I did that. Mm-hmm. And the documentation was just in Asana, and we were using that to manage our tasks. And then Jin took over most of those tasks from me. And that kind of worked well when we were a team of like 4 or 5 people. Over the years, what happened, as you bring more people onto the team, what I've realized is that there are more variables. You can get more work done, but you can end up off track quicker if you're not really watching things. And it's like in aviation they use the 60-to-1 terminology. So if you're 1 degree off track, for every 60 minutes you fly, you'll end up a mile away from where you're supposed to land. So if you're not, and I'm not a micromanager at all. In fact, I'm a terrible manager because I like to just go, hey, here's what we need done, go do it, and just ask me if you get stuck. I don't like to really direct people too much because I don't want them to feel like I'm kind of watching over their shoulder. But what happens is if you don't have a consistent way of doing things, you end up 3 years down the track, you overhear a conversation with 2 people and you're like, why the hell are we doing that? Like, why do you do it like that? And, well, that's just because that's the way it's always been done. And that's the documentation in Asana from 3 years ago. And then you realize this actually happened to us, is that Michelle, one of our admin assistants in the Philippines, went on holidays. My business partner was on holiday at the same time. I logged in to try and send a weekly newsletter to our audience, and I had no idea what I was doing, and I got completely stuck and the email didn't go out. And that's when we said, we got a problem, and the problem is no one really is owning this project. No one is ultimately responsible for making sure the operations of the business are running smoothly. So we went on a journey to try and get some help, and that's how we discovered Work the Systems, just through reading Sam's book. That's how we kind of got into that funnel. Read the book, listened to the podcast, reached out and hired you to help us.
Wow, that's amazing. So it came down to you wanting to send a newsletter out, and just we're stuck.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Because the instruction, here's how basic it was, right? The instruction was log into Dropbox and get this particular asset. And I'm like, hang on a second, we haven't used Dropbox for like 1.5 years. Everything's in Google Drive now. Why am I still being told to go to Dropbox? This is broken. And I could not get through the process of sending the email. And it was like 7 o'clock at night. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going home, man. Screw it. The email's just not going out this week. Too bad. And that's when we realized that we had a problem, because it didn't matter that the email didn't go out, right? But it does matter when you're not delivering on your promise to your customers. And so then I started to dig in and go, okay, what else is broken? And that's when we started to uncover, it's no one's fault. We just haven't instilled this into our culture, and we haven't trained our staff. More importantly, we haven't given them the tools they need and empowered them to write processes. There's no standard way of doing it. There's no incentive to do it. So it just didn't get done. Everyone understood the importance of it, but it wasn't being done very well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to dig into this because for those listening, Troy's team was really successful at actually putting the systems into place. So let's get into some of the details. So you hear about this, we start working together. How did you align the team? Because they kind of knew it was important. How did you get them to get on the same page and actually want to do this hard work?
So in interest of complete transparency, I introduced you to my business partner, Brian. And then after about 6 weeks, I said to Brian, I need to back out of this project because I need to focus on growth and biz dev. So you're it now. And he graciously accepted the mission. And so you guys worked together for about 4 months, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I've been reading a lot about how to get a team in alignment and how to get a team to play the same game and on the same page. And so I've been doing a lot of work on vision, values, mission, stuff that I'd resisted doing for years because I thought it was hokey pokey. I didn't think it mattered. At the same time, Brian was kind of working through the operating principles and the documents that you guys were coaching us. And there was a lot of similarity between the work I was doing and the work Brian was doing, which was great because what it meant is that we were developing these documents that meant we were on the same page, but it then meant it was really easy for us to kind of filter that down to the rest of the team and get the rest of the team on the same page. So what it comes down to really is making sure that everyone shares the vision of why the company exists. And in our case, we're very lucky. Everyone does share exactly the same vision. Our vision is that we want to live in a world where every WordPress consultant on the planet has a sustainable and profitable business that supports them and their families. That's why our company exists. That's the difference we want to make in the world. We're very clear on our values and our operating principles. And so those things enable us to make decisions because they tell us how we make decisions. They're our guiding light, if you like, our values and our operating principles. And then we're very clear on the mission. And the mission is to help 2,000 WordPress consultants this year become profitable. That's a measurable thing that we can enact on. So then the idea is we developed a template for writing what we call standard operating procedures. And Brian and I collaborated on that template. It was very complex to begin with, and then I helped Brian and we simplified it. We worked with one of our staff members who was going to be responsible for filling in a lot of processes in her role, and she said, I don't understand this, it's very complicated. So we simplified it to make it actionable and usable and removed kind of any resistance. And then we basically said to the staff, well, if you don't document your job, you don't go on holiday because no one else can come in and do your job while you're away. So here are the tools. Here's everything you need to do it, and here are the consequences if it doesn't get done. But more importantly, here's why it's important we do this, because as we grow, we're not going to be able to service our clients effectively and efficiently unless we know how the business operates. We can't rely on it. I mean, we're a team of 12 now, I think, on the books remotely. You can't rely on someone remembering to do something and it just being in someone's head. So it's really important to our customers that we do this. It's not just a boring admin thing. It's important to our customers that we do this so that we can continue to serve them as we grow.
Mm-hmm. Wow, there's a lot there, and maybe I can try to recap it because most people, they just think of this leadership as this amorphous thing, but leadership involves having a plan, having a strategy, having principles, having incentives for your team, giving them the tools to use, training them how to use the tools, and let me go back to that, the incentive, right? It wasn't just ideas, it wasn't the hokey pokey stuff you actually gave them, saying like, here's the plan, and you have to do it because you don't get to go on holiday. And then they actually did it. And I think that's one piece. If you're struggling and listening to this, if you're not giving people an incentive, they're going to nod their head, but they might not actually do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's right. And that's what, that's what we were afraid of. Brian and I had been handballing operations to each other for the last 3 years, going, you do it. And Brian would say, okay, no worries, I'll do it. And then I would kind of catch up 6 months later, and he'd be like, he's overwhelmed. I'm like, no worries, I'll do it. And I'd take it off him, and then I would get stuck in biz dev, and it never happened. And so we were really scared that our team would do that. I would nod politely, but not take any action. Mm-hmm. Well, I was saying to you before we hit record, I recently did a presentation at an event here called From Chaos to 124 Standard Operating Procedures in 4 months. And that's the difference that the system and your coaching made in our business. That it's not that we didn't have standard operating procedures. They were just scattered. They were all over the place. There wasn't a lot of consistency. There were holes everywhere. And we are by no means perfect now. But our team have developed those 124 standard operating procedures. I wrote the first one, which is the template on how to write the procedures, and now the team do it as part of their daily and weekly job.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So the procedure for procedures, and then now your team can do it. That's great. 124 in 4 months. That's a lot. And so maybe I can put you on the spot here. I mean, are there any in particular that you remember as kind of like, hey, we put this procedure in place, and then something happened, like less mistakes, or your customers noticed something, or maybe you could delegate something, anything that you have a story about?
So there's the one that comes to mind is there's a lack of communication between marketing and support. So, generally us here in Melbourne in the marketing department will have these brainwaves and we'll execute this campaign, and we forget to tell our team in the Philippines what we're doing. So they get a bunch of customer support tickets, and they're like, they don't know how to answer the questions because we failed to kind of tell them what we're up to, because we just forget. We live in our own little silo. So Michelle in the Philippines introduced a hashtag with our support tickets so that she could tag any support ticket, which basically meant marketing team had to follow that up because we'd failed to communicate. So her instilling that and then documenting that and training the other support staff, if someone asks a question about what do they get with this promo or that deal and we can't answer it, it's because marketing haven't told us and that we're not in the loop. So tag it with this hashtag that alerts marketing to come in and help solve the problem. And that's also a reminder, a bit of a slap in the face for the marketing team to say, you've really got to communicate this down the line so everyone knows what it's about. So that's like just one very practical way that I can say that a problem that was kind of a black hole previously and causing a lot of grief for our support staff, because ultimately our support staff were embarrassed that they couldn't answer the questions. Mm-hmm. They solved that problem with a very simple tactic that was then documented and communicated to everyone and is now being followed. And now we actually have a metric, the number of support tickets that are tagged marketing. And our job in marketing is to try and reduce that number of support tickets every week, which means we're actually communicating with them more efficiently.
That's great. And this is kind of an advanced thing for those listening is once you do have a consistent structure, consistent way to do it, you measure it. And then once the numbers hit the right threshold, then you know that your systems are working. And ideally, if that number went off track, I'm suppose you'd be like, hey, what's wrong with our system? The number's off track. And then
Michelle in the Philippines would tell us, she'd just tell us straight away. She'd go, what are you guys doing? The number of marketing tickets is going through the roof. Like, you're not talking to us. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Perfect. That's perfect. All right. So you get the 124 systems in place. What does your team think of this? And I think you kind of alluded to it. Like, were they, as they walked through this process of documenting, were they on board? Was there resistance? How'd that go?
There was resistance initially because I think we're a small company, right? And I think there's a lot of stuff in Work the System which will be even more beneficial for us as we grow into a larger organization. Mm-hmm. So I think what happened is we tried to bite off everything, and there were probably a couple of layers of complexity that we didn't need at this stage of our growth. So for example, I think there are like 3 or 4 different types of documents you can produce, whether it's a how-to or a checklist or a tutorial. We didn't really sort of need that many. We just needed really an A to B, like a bulleted list or a checklist, right? So, follow these steps or check these things off. So initially there was a bit of resistance just because it seemed a little confusing and a little too complex. But once we actually enlisted one of our team members to come in and say, all right, because I said to Brian, it doesn't matter how much we push to get this enacted. If it's too complicated and they don't do it, then we've failed. So we have to actually get them on board. So let's have a conversation with one of our team members based here in Sydney who runs a lot of our social media and content. And we said, what would this have to look like for you to use it on a daily basis and for it to be a no-brainer? And she basically said, well, simplify it, take this out, condense that, make it like this, and I'd use it. And we said, okay, great. So we did that. and she started using it. And then that's the template that we rolled out to the rest of the team, knowing that we kind of cut out some of the fat that we don't need at this stage of our business. As I said, as we grow, I'm sure we'll enlist more of those complex features later on, but we just needed to kind of keep it lean. So once we did that, and the truth is I didn't even know that they were writing standard operating procedures so much until I went looking for one. And I said to my business partner, I need to refund somebody. Where are all our procedures? All that work we did with Josh, I'm sure our procedures are somewhere. Where are they? And he said, yeah, just this is an advanced thing that we did ourselves, but we built a robot in Slack. So Slack's a tool that we use to communicate. We built a Slack bot that communicates with our Google Drive. And he said, just go into any channel in Slack, type /process, and then the keyword that you're searching for. So I just typed /process refund in any Slack channel, and it listed, I think there are 4 or 5 processes that relate to refund. Mm-hmm. And I just click on it and it takes me straight to the process in Google Drive. And there it is, like step by step, how to process a refund for a customer. If I don't know what process I'm looking for, I just type /process, hit enter, and then it lists all the processes in Google Drive, and I can just scroll through the index and have a look at what I need. Mm-hmm. That was when I said, you know, we've been trying to do this for 5 years, and now I have a central hub of all of my procedures. They're searchable. I can find them. They're easy to update. I can collaborate on them with other team members because it's all in Google Docs, and there's no other software involved. So that was, and it's interesting, Josh, because up until this point, we'd been trying software after software after software to solve our problem.
Yeah, and there are some good softwares out there, but
there are. But they're not going to solve the problem if you don't have the right mindset and the right methodology to begin with.
It really does come down to the mindset, the methodology, and keeping it alive. And the only way to keep it alive is, like you said, simplicity. If it's complicated, it's going to die. It's going to obsolete. People won't use it. But super simple. You're actually using it as the owner, and that's awesome. It's searchable. That's what you want, really, is keep it simple.
Yeah,
cool. That's great. So, how about your business? So now that you have some structure in place, you feel like you actually have things out of your head put into some documents, and so does your team. What does the future look like? I mean, is this now allowing you to get past a plateau you were stuck at before, or allow you to do projects that you previously just couldn't get to? Or what does it do for you?
So last week, Brian and I spent the week together as part of our quarterly review, and what we realized as a result of this is that we need a dedicated operations manager, something that we've never had in the business. Brian and I have kind of always run the business together. What we realized is that we need people to own particular projects. So Brian's recommendation was that we have product managers for each product in the business, mm-hmm. and an operations manager. So that's what we've installed. That's what we're installing in the business now. The fact that we've documented how we do things, and we've documented so many of our procedures, what we're going through the process now of is actually culling a lot of stuff that we do in the business that we don't need to be doing anymore. Things that we're doing because it's always been done that way, or, you know, deliverables that we're delivering to customers that they're not even using, that they don't even care about. Mm-hmm. I can think of one example is we used to have a leaderboard in our online course platform that, believe it or not, caused a lot of admin headache because we would try and integrate it with the activity in our Facebook group. And that was a lot of manual kind of tracking how active people were, how much they were sharing, how much they were reaching out for help, and then manually adding points to the leaderboard. It was causing a lot of problem. And we thought it was a really neat gamification tool that we were using to increase student engagement in the course. Turns out nobody cared about the leaderboard at all. And all we had to do was ask them, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how upset would you be if the leaderboard went away and you never saw it again? And they were like, oh, probably a 3 or a 4. In fact, some people were like, what leaderboard? You have a leaderboard? So like, right, let's can the leaderboard. So that saved us, I reckon, about 12 hours a week across the team of not worrying about that anymore. And so now that we've got visibility around what people are doing and around where people are spending their time because they've documented it. And so now we're just asking questions. What would it mean if we didn't do this? What's the most valuable thing we can do? What are the most valuable projects, the most valuable tasks we can work on to give the most valuable outcome to our customers? Because the more valuable you are to your customers, the more money you make. So we've pivoted our business model. We're going through, I think we're going through puberty, which is never easy, and it's always a bit awkward and a bit pimply. So there's a few things to navigate there, but we have much more visibility around what's actually happening in the business than we did 6 months ago when it was a bit of a black hole. And now we've got more information to make smarter decisions. And so I think it's a matter of minimizing, reducing waste in the business, which will ultimately lead to more profit within the existing revenue. And then as new revenue comes on, that new revenue will be more profitable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's the visibility, and owners, especially when you get to be your size, things are happening, but you don't necessarily know how they're happening. Once they're in writing, you say, wow, why are we doing it this way? Or there's a better way, or let's just not do that anymore. And then your team can take on more work and grow. So that's cool how you're actually able to see that, the visibility. So let's see, got a couple more questions, and I know you've got to run in a few minutes here. So let's see. Other people listening to this call. So certainly you're an online business, you got a remote team, you're spread out, but this goes for traditional companies as well. What advice would you give to them in terms of, should they systemize their business? When should they make this shift? What kind of advice would you give to someone listening to this podcast who's got their own business?
So I was talking about this on a podcast earlier today, actually, with a friend of mine, Joe Howard, who runs like a WordPress maintenance business, and he's a remote team as well. He's got staff all over the world. And we're talking about the difference between being a business owner and someone who's building assets. And, I'm not talking about, building wealth for the sake of it, but if you want to have some kind of enjoyment later on in life and you're not on the clock earning money, if you want to actually have the work that you've done during your life pay dividends for you at some point, then you need those assets, whatever they are, to generate revenue through either appreciation or interest while you're, not working. So whether that's owning gold and silver, whether it's owning property, whether it's owning a business. And I think what differentiates a business as, it's a job for the business owner and it's something to keep them busy during the day so they don't argue with their spouse too much, or this is an asset that's actually going to generate wealth for us later on. I think the difference is documentation and procedures so that you can put other key people in key roles in the business to drive the business forward, and you're not actually having to be the one that turns up. That is like, I don't think there's any other reason you need really to seriously think about systemizing the business. And I think the other, I spoke at a forum here recently in Melbourne and was referencing the work that we've done with you. And I said, and I mentioned the biggest challenge I think with systemizing a business, from my point of view anyway, as a business owner for years, was I don't have time to sit down and write all these documents. It's quicker if I just do it myself. Now, there's this flawed thinking. First of all, you can't scale that, right? So that's flaw number one. But flaw number two, it's not that you don't have time to document everything that needs to be done in the business. The truth is, you're not the best person to document everything that's done in the business because you're not the one doing everything in the business. And so this whole bottom-up approach that we learned from you and Sam was a game changer for us, is that, why would I document how to shoot a video testimonial from one of our clients when I'm not a video specialist? I let Max, who's our video specialist, I let him document the process of that because he's the one that's going to be doing it, and he will find the most efficient way of doing that because that's what human beings do. Therefore, he is the best one to write that document because he's found the most efficient way of doing it. I just need to get out of the way, give him the tools he needs to do it, and then encourage him to contribute to the library. So thinking that you need a lot of time as a business owner to document your business is flawed thinking. What you need is the right tools, you need buy-in from the staff, and you need to encourage them and make it a part of their job. And you need to think about your business as an asset, not just something that keeps you busy from, 9 to 5, or if you're like most business owners, from 7 till 10.
That's right. And weekends too. No, that's perfect. I always say these are assets. These building blocks are each, you see them as assets that are paid back over time. And making the work part of your employee's job. Now, if you're a short-term thinker, you'd think, well, I'd rather have them just do the work. But if you're a long-term thinker, I want them to build assets because those are going to actually appreciate over time, which is perfect. Most owners don't see that. And you were one of the few people I've worked with, one-on-one coaching clients where you got it from the very beginning and you said, okay, this is something that's really important, but it's not something that I'm, it's not my skill set. Yeah. And I got to work with Brian, and then Brian was really good at organizing things. And then he, distributed to the team. he brought the procedures back up, bottom up every single week. He had a number of procedures get done. And then you and him could look at them. It was beautiful to watch this get orchestrated. I was like, wow, you guys are really good at this.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think what happens is we've been really bad at it for so long that we made a decision that the common denominator in our failings was us, and we needed some help. You were the first person that we'd actually hired to help us. We've hired consulting, we've hired marketing consultants, out of our ears over the years, but we've never hired an operations or a systems coach before. You were the first one that we hired. And so we made a decision, we are going to see this through no matter what. And Brian is definitely better at follow through than I am. I'm great at starting things, proving something's going to work. I'm terrible at follow through. That's why I have a business partner like Brian, who is much more diligent at planning and following things through. And that's why I knew this was going to be his sweet spot, not mine.
Yeah, and when I saw you guys working together, I was like, yeah, this is going to be a slam dunk, especially as you guys are dividing up the worlds. So that's perfect. Well, I really appreciate it, Troy. This has been fun to talk to you, and hopefully those listening to this actually get a chance to hear, what it's like, and that, regular folks with small businesses can make a major difference, and you guys certainly did in your lives. So where can folks find out more about your business, Troy, WP Elevation, and more about what you do?
WPElevation.com is our blog. That's the best place to come and say hi. We've also got a very active YouTube channel, and we live stream onto Facebook weekly. WPElevation.com/Facebook. Check us out on our Facebook page and leave a comment and say good day.
Okay, well, very good, Troy. I appreciate it. Appreciate you making the time. Thanks, everybody, for watching the podcast or listening. Next week, come again to the WPS or the Work the System podcast, and where I'll be interviewing someone else like Troy, who's systemized his business, or another business expert who's written a book who can help you work less and make more. Thanks, everybody.